Hi everyone, welcome back. Here we go, another video on the simple cases of the product rule. Not using more complicated stuff, just a little bit that we can show you that this is essential. I could expand all of it out and do the question, but instead I can call that U, I can call that V. Simple case of writing the chain rule. I keep saying VUV for the dash at the back of both. So if you want to call it UVU or other forms, that's okay, it all works the same. So I write down whatever V is. So there's V, the whole thing there is V. So I write the 4x plus 3 and the cubed, a bit more complicated. Then I multiply it by the derivative of the U, which is just 2. So if I differentiate 2x, I get 2, and 3 becomes nothing. I don't need to write the 0. Now I write the U, which is nice and easy. Don't forget the brackets. People forget the brackets. Now the tricky part, this part here. If you haven't yet learnt the chain rule, you can look at that on other videos and I'll give examples of just the chain rule. But if you haven't learnt the chain rule as yet, just watch this and accept what happens for a moment. The derivative of this part here, if you think of it, when I talk about the DDs, a 3 power multiplies by the front, by the coefficient there, so that's a 3. 3 ones are 3, and the power decreases by 1. So that power, instead of being a 3, comes out as a 2. There's one trick to the chain rule. This is more complicated than, for example, just x cubed. So you have to multiply by the derivative of the inside. And that's why we call it the chain rule. We can show you that formally in other videos. Derivative of 4x is just a 4. By the way, there's the answer to the question. Of course, you can tidy it up and do lots of things, and everyone says, is that sufficient? Well, sometimes in the assessment, I will write do not simplify. So the moment they've written that down in any form, it's 4 marks. But if I did simplify, there's a 2, there's a bracket, there's a 4x plus 3 all cubed. This one here, I normally write the 3 4s first, and the numbers, the constant, the coefficient first, not constant, coefficient first. Some people put the single power first and then the squared power last. Of course, if you wanted to, you could expand all that out and do all sorts of things to it. Now, if you wanted to, you could take that further and take out common factors. Common factor of 2, common factor of 4x plus 3 squared. Because there's a squared there, there's a cube there, and go a lot further. So now this is U and this is V. I always talk about rearrange, because we do not know how to differentiate a square root. So I need to write the square root as 4x plus 3 to the power of a half. Remembering that a square root means that you have an index or an exponent of a half. Now I can call this one U, do V, go through the same as what we did a moment ago. Leave myself a bit of room. V, U, U, V, with a plus and a dash on the back of both. You can write that in so many ways. So here we go. We write down whenever it's set for V. So if I wanted to, I don't have to write it like that. I could just write it like that. Saves you rearranging it back in a minute, but doesn't really save anything. Then the derivative of U is just the 3. Make sure it looks like the 3 is not inside the square root. It's actually outside of the square root. So that square root's controlled by that long line there, which means there's a bracket around it. Plus the U, which is a 3x minus 5. Don't forget the bracket. Now the derivative of the V. Now what's the rule? You normally just go a half times the front and decrease the power by 1. So let's do that. Half. And then you decrease 1. And that becomes a minus a half. Now the big thing you haven't learned as yet is multiplied by the derivative of the inside. So 4x, this becomes a 4. Question's done. Really should just leave it as that. For those who want to, if you want to turn it off, you can leave it there, but I'm going to tidy it up. 3 outside of this, you put the coefficient first, 4x plus 3. Now what have we got? This is a numerator, so I'm going to put it looking like it's on the top of a fraction. The half times the 4 is just a 2. So here's the interesting part. It's 2 bracket. Please be careful about that. You could have done that just as 6x, take 10. And then this gets written now on the denominator with a square root. So this little thing here means move whatever it's controlling, which is all of that, to the denominator and put a square root on it. So I'm going to move it to the denominator and put a square root on it. And then the question's pretty good. It's good to tidy it up. You can go on and on with mathematicians. That's enough. If you're enjoying it, please just let your friends know.